What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the interweb? Today is Saturday, February 3rd, 2024, and this is Byte Extra, the show where we take all the gaming news from the past week that I covered on Byte and give our opinions on it. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. The overall theme for this past week was that leaks are good for gaming. Every Byte this past week, except for Wednesday, of course, for State of Play, involved leaks in some way. A lot of leaks guided our hypes way over expectations, and a lot of leaks kind of just let us down. But either way, this week's Bytes were a major upcoming PlayStation 5 game got leaked, and that is 007. We got tons of information about that. Not necessarily a Byte, but the Nintendo Switch 2 leaked release date, launch games, etc. Sonic Generations 2 leaked before the PlayStation State of Play. Then we of course had the State of Play itself. The PlayStation Vita 2 leaked, which I wasn't expecting at all to hear about this week. And then finally, this one didn't technically involve a leak, but it does in a way. Stellar Blade canceled, not the game itself, but cancel culture. And Silent Hill's short message is officially the worst AAA game of the generation. It was a really enjoyable week of Byte, if I'm being completely honest with you. But starting from the top, the leaked 007 gameplay is actually kind of really cool. If it really is going to be a hybrid first-person, third-person game, I think that can give some really cool game elements. Maybe some Metal Gear Solid type stuff, because Metal Gear Solid 5 was kind of a hybrid between that. You could play the game in first person, or you could just play it in third person. The Switch leak's pretty exciting, but not a Byte, so we're not going to talk about that too much. Now, Sonic Generations 2. Initially, we didn't know the name of it. The name did leak a part of the leak, but Sonic and Shadow Generations, that's really exciting. I'm gonna day one it. I always do. Pretty much every Sonic game, except for the latest one. The latest one didn't look so hot, so I'm waiting for that to be a $20 sale, which could be any moment now. And then State of Play, oh my god, it was finally a good State of Play. We've been having State of Plays now for what, 4, 5 years? We haven't had a single one yet that was actually enjoyable and worth watching. I think up until now, the last one that was any good was the one that Resident Evil 3 Remake got announced in. And that was literally just because of Resident Evil. Then skip to the next day, PlayStation Vita 2 got leaked. That kind of blew my mind. As I said, I wasn't really expecting to hear about that this week. I wasn't expecting a new PlayStation handheld at all. I thought the Portal was going to be our way to go, and the Backbone. The Backbone is honestly my preferred way, and now that we know this is coming, I don't know if I want to get a Portal anymore. I mean, it might not be a real leak. A lot of people online have been saying since like the last 2 days now that Moore's Law is Dead is not a reliable YouTuber, that he just kind of makes stuff up. I mean, I don't know this guy at all, so I'm not going to say he does. But I really hope that's not the case, because I'm actually really excited. I love handheld gaming. I love it so much. And I'd be really upset if we ended up not getting a new PlayStation handheld. But when you look at it as a whole, like especially the mobile gaming space right now, it is dominated by the Nintendo Switch. Of course, nobody's going to touch the Switch. But when you look around it, all these companies are racing to make their own handheld. Obviously, having your own handheld right now is not as exciting as it would have been 20 years ago. Like this Steam Deck, like if it had cartridges and actual like games that you could play on it, like that would be so cool. The Asus ROG, I think is what it's called. If they had the same thing, really super cool. But PlayStation handheld, if it comes out, if this is real, it's more than likely going to be digital only, but it's going to be a different digital only. Because it's actually going to feel like a gaming handheld and not just a handheld PC. That might not make sense, but as someone who collects games, I like the Steam Deck. It's cool. I mean, I'm going to get a lot of use out of it, but I'm not going to get anywhere near the use out of it as I would a PlayStation handheld. And especially if the rumors are true and the PlayStation 6 does go all digital, I mean, I'm probably going to not be able to buy, physical games anymore on that thing. Obviously, if it's all digital. So what better way to push those of us who don't want to go digital only than giving us a handheld variant of the console? I didn't mention this in that video because I didn't want to put my opinion out there or speculate during that, but honestly, I'm starting to think that the PlayStation 6 might be a handheld hybrid. Think about it, if we're going digital only, there is not a single justification for a home console anymore. There is no justifications for it. And now with things getting as powerful as they are, by the time the PlayStation 6 comes around, if it's a hybrid handheld, they could pack so much power into that little thing. I mean, look at it across the board. All these little nano chips, all these little ARM chips like Apple's M1. Like obviously Apple's gone further than M1 now. I think they're up to M3, M4. But if PlayStation were to have their own M chip, like they could do so much with that. Like you can literally fit an entire gaming console on something the size of your fingernail now. So if they were able to do that and make it efficient and give at least 3 to 4 terabit of storage on the PlayStation 6 with the handheld hybrid, I mean, Nintendo's done. Like Nintendo's gonna be done. Like they might still be great in Japan, but PlayStation's gonna take over the handheld marketplace again. And then finally we get to Friday's Byte. Stellar Blade's getting canceled online, which I think is kind of silly. Like, we have no proof that they actually fired these women and they're not just random people online. I mean, it was reported anyway, so we talked about it, but there's no proof. So why are people upset at Shift Up for something that may or may not have even happened? And now to the one I really wanted to talk about for this week. Silent Hill: The Short Message is now officially the worst AAA game of 2024. But wait, it's also the worst official AAA game of this console generation, period. When this initially leaked like 2 years ago, I believe I've covered it. I believe I made a couple of videos on it, because at that point in time, I was only making, horror game content. I just covered Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Alan Wake, a couple other things. I didn't really do gaming news as a whole, but now I do. So looking back, I was really excited for it. But now that we finally got it, like, what is this? Like, is this a joke? I'm not going to spoil it at all, but I'll admit, the story was pretty cool, but the gameplay was just terrible. The gameplay was terrible. It had a bunch of cheap chase sequences to make up for not having any gameplay at all, and honestly, that's not fun at all. Like, people joked about Death Stranding being a walking simulator. This game is really a walking simulator. I mean, you don't even have to have a bunch of enemies for a game to be scary. I mean, look at Outlast. Outlast was scary, and it didn't have a ton of enemies doing all this, that, and the other. I don't think it even really had chase sequences. It's just psychological horror. But in this new Silent Hill, it was really a tech demo disguised as a Silent Hill. Obviously, it wasn't made by Bloober Team, but it still doesn't, inspire hope for Silent Hill 2 remake if this is the type of quality Konami is okay with putting out there in the world. If I honestly had to give it a score out of 10, it would be a 2 out of 10. The graphics were okay, they gave me a really big PlayStation 3 throwback. The overall premise of the story was really good, but the gameplay sucked, the world design sucked, the enemy design sucked, the full motion video sucked. It had some of the worst voice acting I have ever seen in my life. Now, I'm sure the Japanese version, the original without a dub, probably sounds a lot better, but dub actors speaking over live action just always sounds so stupid. This was our first taste of Silent Hill in at least 10 years. At least as far as not having remasters go. And honestly, I would have rather just kept going until Silent Hill 2 remake at this point, because this was not worth it. This is going to be a stain on Silent Hill's legacy. They tried to be a PT clone. It was not a PT clone. It was just disappointing. But with that being said, there's my opinions from this week's of Byte. I'm excited for next week when it comes to gaming news, because it is the first official full week of February, and the first official full week of February always has major news. We should be expecting a Switch Direct at some point this month. Maybe we'll get the announcements of the next, Nintendo console there. We of course have another PlayStation State of Play coming up just for Final Fantasy, and overall, there's quite a good handful of things to look forward to overall, because it's February. Of course, I live in Texas, so it's already spring. We only get 2 seasons here, summer and spring. We don't get winter, we don't get fall. But in the rest of the United States, it's pretty exciting right now, because spring is just a handful of weeks away. Make it through February, you're into March, you get some 50, 60 degree days. Make it into April, 60, 70, and then you get into May, and we're up in the 80s, and it's great. Except for us here in Texas, it's going to be about 110 degrees by the time we hit May, and it's not going to let up until November. But with that being said, let me know your opinions on this week's gaming news in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, try not to die, and I'll see you in the next video.